Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're embarking on really a critical mission, trying to find the hidden cures that might already be out there,
Mhm.
just sitting on pharmacy shelves.
Yeah, we're diving into this world of drug repurposing, but also looking at, extreme patient self-agency. And it's all through the lens of this incredible journey of a physician scientist, Dr. David Fajgenbaum.
And the core idea he puts forward is, well, it's pretty startling, isn't it?
It really is. He basically argues that many treatments, maybe even cures for all sorts of diseases, rare, common, you name it, they already exist.
Where?
They're hidden within the 4,000 drugs already approved by the FDA. Think about it. Most drugs hit maybe 40 different biochemical pathways in our bodies,
Okay.
but they usually only get studied and approved for just one or two of those things. That's the approved label.
Wow. So that inefficiency, that's a huge potential gap in how we find and use medicines.
Exactly. And the trigger for this whole deep dive, it comes right from Dr. Fajgenbaum's own life, a really dramatic moment.
Tell us about that.
He'd had this terrible relapse of a condition called Castleman's disease. He goes to the world's expert, the top person, and they tell him straight up, David, there's nothing.
Oh, man, nothing left.
But internally, he just couldn't accept that. He'd already been saved 3 times by 7 different chemo drugs originally made for lymphoma, not Castleman's.
Right.
So his immediate thought was, well, if those worked, how can they be so sure there isn't an 8th drug? Or a 9th? He realized, wait, we haven't tried all 4,000 approved drugs.
And that realization just lit a fire under him, sparked this huge personal scientific mission.
Absolutely. But that drive, that sense of radical self-agency, it actually started much, much earlier.
Yeah, when he was 18, right? With his mother.
His mom was battling glioblastoma. It's this incredibly aggressive, basically always fatal brain tumor. And he promised her then and there he'd dedicate his life to finding treatments for patients like her.
And her own resilience must have been a huge influence. There's that story.
Oh, the Chiquita banana story. It's amazing. She just had brain surgery. Sometimes they keep patients awake to check function.
Right.
She's recovering, family's around her, and she looks at these heavy bandages wrapped all around her head, points up and jokes, Chiquita banana lady.
Wow. Even then.
Incredible spirit. Total agency, just refusing to let the disease define her or steal her humor.
And that perspective, that resilience, it must have become absolutely vital later on when he himself got sick.
Totally. He was a healthy third-year med student, and then suddenly, bam, he gets this near-fatal diagnosis, Castleman's disease.
It's a really unusual one, isn't it? It sort of flies under the radar.
Yeah, it's this atypical lymphoproliferative disorder. Basically, it throws your immune system completely haywire. It looks a bit like lymphoma, a bit like a severe autoimmune disease.
And it hit him hard.
Brutally hard. We're talking rapid, multi-organ failure, liver, kidneys, bone marrow, all shutting down. He even went temporarily blind from a hemorrhage, gained 100 pounds of fluid.
Good grief.
Over about a year and a half, he nearly died 5 times. 5 times.
And that 5th time, that was the breaking point, or maybe the turning point.
Both, maybe. He was getting last rites. Everyone thought this was it. He was told, again, you're out of options.
But that earlier thought, the 4,000 drugs,
Mm.
it wouldn't let go.
Exactly. They just forced him into action. He literally wiped away his tears and decided, okay, however much time I have left, I'm dedicating it to finding a solution in my own lab now.
Wow. That's intense.
And that sort of desperation, it fueled this massive discovery. His own research, looking at his own samples, pointed to one specific mechanism in his immune system just being totally in overdrive.
Which one?
The mTOR pathway. For you listening, the mTOR pathway is kind of like a master switch in cells. It controls growth, metabolism, immune function.
So if it's stuck in the on position.
Things go crazy. Exactly. It was spinning out of control in his body.
So, okay, he has this molecular insight.
Yeah.
What did he do? Did he try to develop a new drug?
No, that's the key. He took a leap of faith based on existing drugs. He started taking sirolimus. It's also known as rapamycin.
Sirolimus. Isn't that the drug used to prevent organ transplant rejection?
Precisely. Its main job is to suppress an overactive immune system. So he thought, maybe it'll suppress my overactive immune system, driven by this mTOR pathway.
And it.
He's been in remission ever since. We're talking almost 12 years now. He saved his own life by understanding the function of an existing drug, not just its approved label.
That's just incredible. But like you said, the tragedy here is that his story isn't just about his survival. It exposes this huge blind spot in medicine.
This giant blind spot, yeah. It shows how even the best, most well-meaning doctors can be completely unaware of treatments that could work, just because of how we categorize and study drugs.
So let's dig into that. Let's look at this pharmacy of existing cures that this system seems to be missing.
Right, because the whole infrastructure, it's geared towards finding brand new, patentable, often expensive drugs. It's not really set up to find new uses for old, cheap, generic ones.
Okay, let's unpack some specific examples from the source material that really highlight this. Aspirin, for instance.
Classic example. We all know it for pain, maybe fever, thinning the blood for heart attack prevention.
Yeah, standard stuff.
But it turns out, in certain colon cancer patients, specifically those with a mutation in that same mTOR pathway, Fajgenbaum targeted taking aspirin seems to reduce the risk of the cancer coming back.
Whoa, okay. Same pathway again. Fascinating.
Isn't it? And then there's lidocaine.
The stuff the dentist uses to numb your mouth.
That's the one. Get this. A big clinical trial in India, over 1,600 women with localized breast cancer. They injected lidocaine around the tumor right before surgery.
Okay.
And they saw a 29% reduction in 5-year mortality. 29%.
Wait, seriously, from lidocaine? That seems massive, especially because lidocaine costs, what, pennies?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pennies an injection.
Yeah.
Widely available. So the question becomes, why isn't this standard practice everywhere?
Yeah, that's the baffling part.
Yeah.
We'll definitely circle back to why that knowledge doesn't spread, but keep going. What else is hiding in plain sight?
Okay, think about Viagra, sildenafil.
Right. Originally for heart problems, then famously repurposed.
Or erectile dysfunction, yeah. But here's another critical use. It's now essential for treating a rare lung disease in kids, pulmonary hypertension. It literally helps them get blood flow to their lungs. Saves lives.
Amazing. And thalidomide. That one has such a dark history.
Oh, absolutely infamous. Caused terrible birth defects back in the day when used for nausea in pregnancy. Just horrific.
But it got repurposed.
Yes. Later on, it was found to be effective and got FDA approval for treating leprosy. And then, even later, for multiple myeloma, a type of blood cancer.
How does it work there?
Its main mechanism in cancer seems to be that anti-angiogenic effect you mentioned earlier. It stops tumors from growing the new blood vessels they need to survive and grow.
So a drug with a devastating past finds redemption in treating other serious diseases.
It's a powerful example of repurposing, and sometimes the repurposed drugs are ancient. Take colchicine.
Used for gout, right? For ages.
Literally 3,000 years, yeah. But now, a modified dose is actually FDA approved to reduce the risk of heart disease, especially if you've already had a heart attack or if you have diabetes.
3,000 years old and still finding new tricks.
Tells you how much we might be missing. But sometimes the misconnections are just tragic because of the delay. Tell us about Data 2.
Ah, right. This is a rough one. Data 2 is this rare, really severe inflammatory disease.
Yeah.
It attacks blood vessels, causing kids to have multiple strokes. Just awful.
And about 2 decades ago, some brilliant doctor, it was like a total Hail Mary pass, diagnosed a child dying from it, and they decided to try a TNF inhibitor.
Which is normally used for what?
Things like autoimmune vasculitis, other inflammatory conditions, but it worked for this child with Data 2. It stopped the strokes.
Okay, fantastic. So that knowledge spread quickly.
That's the tragedy. No. Because there wasn't a system in place to share that kind of finding effectively, especially for a rare disease using an off-label drug. It took 10 years.
10 years for that insight to spread globally.
10 years. Think about the hundreds, maybe thousands of kids who suffered strokes during that decade because the information was just stuck.
That lag.
Yeah.
It just screams systemic failure. But hang on, let me jump in with a question here. Because this self-agency, this repurposing, it sounds powerful, but also potentially risky, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, if Fajgenbaum had tried a drug for his Castlemans that hadn't worked, or caused severe side effects because it wasn't tested for that specific condition, who's liable? How do you balance this, radical patient action with safety and regulation?
That is the absolute crux of the issue. The whole medical system is, quite rightly, built on doing rigorous disease-specific trials to prove safety and efficacy before widespread use.
Right, for good reason.
But the economics just work completely against finding new uses for old drugs. That's the patent problem. Once a drug goes generic, and something like 80% of those 4,000 approved drugs are generic, the financial incentive for a company to spend, say, $100 million on huge new trials for a totally different disease, it just disappears.
So they might tweak the formula slightly for the same disease to keep a patent alive longer.
Exactly. Slight tweaks, new delivery methods for the same condition. But they're not going to fund a massive trial to prove, say, that cheap, generic lidocaine helps breast cancer patients survive longer. There's no big payoff at the end.
So it's not necessarily a lack of scientific clues. It's often an economic barrier preventing those clues from being followed up on properly.
Precisely. Which leads to what Fajgenbaum calls the Santa Claus theory of civilization.
Okay, explain that one.
It's this common kind of comforting belief that somewhere out there are these rooms full of brilliant scientists, all collaborating, systematically tackling every single problem, connecting all the dots, like Santa's workshop, but for medicine.
Yeah, you sort of assume someone's coordinating it all.
But the reality, it's much more random. Knowledge sharing is often piecemeal, happens by chance encounters at conferences, maybe an obscure paper someone happens to read. It's not systematic.
And the danger of believing in that Santa Claus theory is
that really promising? Potentially life-saving ideas using cheap generic drugs often just die quietly in some low-impact journal because nobody's incentivized, nobody is paid to connect those dots and push them forward.
So if the system is kind of random, the responsibility, unfortunately, shifts back to the patient, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To be more proactive.
It does. So for you listening, if you or a loved one are facing a serious diagnosis, especially if you're hearing things like there's nothing more we can do, what are the practical steps Fajgenbaum suggests?
What can people actually do?
3 key things. First, connect with a specific disease organization or an advocacy group. Think like the ALS Association, Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's. These groups often gather global information, sometimes faster than traditional channels.
Okay, step 1, find your community.
Step 2, find the world's expert, the real guru for that specific condition. They might have insights or know about trials, others don't.
Go to the source. Makes sense.
And step 3, just keep asking questions. Persistently, even if you're told no, we don't know, ask why, ask what else could be tried. Never just accept silence or nothing more without pushing back.
That persistence seems key. And this idea of self-agency, it even extends beyond treating an active disease into like preventative or prophylactic health, right?
Yeah, the sources mention this interesting phenomenon where you see experts using information that hasn't really filtered down into general recommendations yet.
Like the examples of colleagues taking low-dose lithium.
Right, intermittently, not continuously, based on some data suggesting potential protective effects against dementia down the line.
Right.
Or the Nobel laureate using nicotine gum because of studies hinting at possible protection against Parkinson's and Alzheimer's.
So these are highly informed people looking at early data, population studies, correlations.
And making personalized preventative choices based on that info, long before it becomes standard medical advice. That's maybe the ultimate expression of proactive health self-agency.
Okay, so if the scientific progress is often piecemeal and individual agency is crucial, but maybe not enough to solve the whole problem, how do we fix this systemically at scale?
Well, that's exactly what Dr. Fajgenbaum is trying to do with his nonprofit, Every Cure.
Tell us about Every Cure. What's their approach?
Their mission is basically to tackle this huge blind spot systematically. They're using AI, machine learning, building these massive things called biomedical knowledge graphs.
Knowledge graphs. Sounds complex. What do they actually do?
Think of it like digital detective work on a massive scale. The AI sifts through millions of scientific papers, clinical trial results, drug databases, and it looks for connections. It tries to quantify systematically how likely every approved drug is to potentially treat every known disease.
So it's trying to find those missed connections, those breadcrumbs you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. The AI is designed to connect two, maybe previously unconnected scientific facts. For example, one lab might publish a paper showing that a particular rare cancer, let's say angiosarcoma, tends to express high levels of a protein called PD-L1.
Okay, PD-L1, that's like an immune checkpoint, right? It puts the brakes on the immune system.
Precisely. Then, maybe a totally separate paper shows that an existing drug one already approved for something else, like melanoma works by inhibiting PD-1, which is the receptor that PD-L1 binds to.
So the AI connects those two dots.
Yeah.
High PD-L1 in this cancer.
Yeah.
And a drug that blocks the PD-1 receptor, suggesting that drug might release the brakes on the immune system in that specific cancer.
You got it. And this isn't just theoretical. This exact scenario played out.
With angiosarcoma.
Yes. Fajgenbaum's own lab back in 2016 used this approach. They found a connection based on a paper that was already 3 years old, but nobody had acted on it for angiosarcoma patients.
What was the drug?
It was pembrolizumab, a PD-1 inhibitor approved for melanoma and other cancers. They identified a patient named Michael with metastatic angiosarcoma, which is usually fatal very quickly. He'd run out of all other options.
And they tried pembrolizumab.
They did, and the result was absolutely transformative. Michael went into remission. He's still in remission now, 9 years later.
9 years from a uniformly fatal cancer.
9 years. And that discovery, based on connecting existing information, has actually changed clinical practice. That drug is now known to be incredibly effective for about 20% of angiosarcoma patients. It wasn't inventing a new molecule, it was just translating knowledge that had fallen through the cracks.
That's powerful. It really shows the potential. And to navigate these challenges both personally and systemically, Fajgenbaum developed this kind of cognitive model, didn't he?
Yeah.
The hope, action, impact circuit.
Yes, it's his framework for resilience, really, how he kept going.
How does that work? How does it fuel that tenacity?
It's basically a positive feedback loop. You start with hope, but not vague hope. A specific, clear vision for a possible future, like maybe I can find one drug that helps.
Okay, a concrete goal.
That hope then drives immediate action. Running experiments, digging through data, making calls. You do something.
Makes sense.
That action then leads to impact. You get a result. Maybe it's not the final answer, but it's new information, a new piece of the puzzle.
And that new data.
Feeds back and reinforces the original hope. It says, okay, this direction might be working, or I learned something, now I can adjust. It keeps the cycle going.
And apparently this ties into some actual neuroscience, something about the brain.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It links to an area called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Studies show this region is involved in persistence, tenacity, that sort of will to live.
And it's more active in certain people.
It seems to be hyperactive in so-called superagers, older adults, with amazing cognitive function and people who show profound resilience. It's linked to dopamine pathways, that feeling of positive anticipation, of working towards a reward.
So Fajgenbaum's personal crisis kind of forced that circuit into overdrive.
You could say that. The constant threat created this intense need for hope, which drove relentless action, which yielded just enough impact to keep the hope alive. It prevented him from shutting down.
So wrapping this all up for you, the listener, what's the big takeaway here?
I think the main thing is realizing that our current medical arsenal, all those approved drugs, it's potentially vastly underutilized.
And just understanding these systemic flaws, the economic barriers, the random nature of discovery, that's actually the first step towards being a better advocate for yourself or your loved ones.
Absolutely. You don't need to be a physician scientist yourself to start asking smarter questions, to connect with the right groups, to push for answers.
And if this systematic approach, using AI to find these hidden cures, resonates with you,
then you can definitely engage with Every Cure. Their website is everycure.org. You can go there to share your own story if you've had experience with repurposed drugs. You can sign up as an expert if you have relevant research or clinical knowledge.
or donate to support their work.
Yes, or donate. They run clinical trials based on their AI findings, and that takes funding. It's important to know their funding comes partly from ARPAH, that's the U.S. government's agency for high-risk, high-reward health research.
And Every Cure itself is strictly nonprofit.
Completely nonprofit. Their only goal is to get existing affordable medicines to the people who can benefit from them faster. No profit motive, just impact.
It's a compelling mission. We started this whole deep dive talking about Fajgenbaum's life being saved by rapamycin and this idea that the answers might already be here. So let's end maybe with where that drug actually came from.
Yeah, it's kind of a poetic bookend, isn't it?
Yeah.
The drug, sirolimus, got the trade name rapamycin because the bacterium that produces it was originally discovered in a soil sample from Rapa Nui,
Rapa Nui, Easter Island.
Easter Island, found during a scientific expedition looking for new natural compounds back in the 70s. So this life-saving drug, it literally came from the earth, from this remote island.
Right.
And maybe that's the final thought here. The real tragedy isn't always that we haven't invented enough brand new miracle drugs. Sometimes the tragedy is that incredibly effective treatments, often derived from nature itself, are already discovered, already sitting on the shelf just waiting for someone or some AI to finally make the connection and get them to the patients whose lives they could save.